This story we got from the Daily Signal, 3 arrested after Antifa clashes with Armenian parents at California school board meeting. This is significant. Regular people are saying no over and over and over again. We've got the Bud Light effect. You've got Target. And now you've got parents showing up saying, you know, we politely requested that these books not be in our schools. Now we're protesting. Then the far left shows up, these extremists, and start attacking parents.
Yeah.
Now you've got clashes. This is where things get crazy, because if you've got regular guy wearing hoodie and jeans being like, look, man, I don't know why they gave my kid that book, and then some crackpot far left extremist shows up, those regular people are not going to vote.
No, they're not. And I'm going to
they're now going to vote. They're going to
the regular people are going to vote. Right. And I was going in a different direction. I'm going to use a word the left loves, especially when they deploy their DEI and ESG initiatives. They love the term stakeholder. So at CPAC, I did a panel on debanking, because our fund experienced it because we did some work in the defense sector, ammo, et cetera, and we were debanked from a couple of banks. And one of the words they love, they've changed the nomenclature for who's invested from shareholder to stakeholder, right? So the stakeholder, according to these big banks like SVB that went under and the really woke banks, First Republic out in California, they consider the homeless guy sleeping in the ATM lobby a stakeholder now.
That's right.
Right? But in this scenario, Antifa, whomever they were, they have no stake in this whatsoever. No stake whatsoever. So the parents, the kids, the teachers, the administrators, the school board, local elected officials, you can argue they're all stakeholders. I hate the stakeholder term anyway. But the radical leftists who showed up had no stake in this. They were showing up simply to be instigators. And everybody's trying to make this about Armenian Americans and this and that. No. These are just parents who are fed up. They've had enough. You saw it, not far away from here in Loudoun County. And here, these people said enough's enough. And I think that's the way. Now, I'm not trying to get in anybody's head, but I think that's how many of these parents saw it. It wasn't we're a certain, demographic and this is politically ideological and we're opposed to them because we're conservative and they're. No, I think they're just basically saying, these are our kids. What the hell business do you have here? And why are you coming here to disrupt the way we want our kids taught and the way we want to parent? And as we've seen, I mean, you guys, Tim, you've been out there and in the streets with this stuff. They instigate, and they've always gotten away with it. And this time they didn't. They just had fed up parents who had enough, who wanted to protect their kids. And I think you're going to see more and more of this because people are just, look, you can do a lot of things. Don't come after people's kids. When you start coming after people's kids, bad things happen.
Yeah, it makes people desperate. Like you see the mother bear, the female bear.
Great enough, yeah.
How it'll just go completely blood, like it's not even bloodlust, like it wants to hurt. It wants to protect the child, and it will annihilate anything.
Even if you're well-meaning, you see a little cub, you want it's just
you just want to pet it and
hold it and cuddle it.
Even if you're well-meaning, I think that a lot of the people in this movement, this political movement, the trans movement, or whatever you want to call it, are, for them, they believe they are well-meaning.
Right.
But it doesn't matter if people find a threat towards their children. So you need to understand that people
will. But if you're
also not well-meaning.
Right.
If you remove the bear cub, you're not well-meaning.
You're not. These are people who are intentionally targeting children with overt adult content.
That's right.
Matt Walsh, the Daily Wire, we'll get more in depth in this after we wrap up this story, did an expose where he found this rubber stamping of procedures, of Section 8 procedures, because these companies are getting tons of money for it. They are not well-meaning. They are selfish, egotistical, violent narcissists who are in a cult.
I just rewatched the music video of "We'll Convert Your Children." You remember that?
Oh yeah.
"We'll convert your children." Like smiling and like, yo, you can't just joke and say that out loud.
They're not joking.
I know.
Not joking.
They said they were joking. A week later, or 2 weeks later.
They're not. After the fact.
They're like, yeah, we were just playing around. Like, you just told people you were going to convert their children
and
into
explain
some
how they do it. They said they're going to get their friends. They're going to bring them
bit
places.
by bit. Yeah.
Yep. There's nothing you can do to stop it. You can't control what your kids see.
It's like the boys' choir.
They're talking about giving your children access to adult content to indoctrinate them.
Yeah.
They're doing it now.
Yes.
And so I'm surprised it took this long for parents to realize and to be active.
And for the record, it was the San Francisco Gay Men's Choir who made this video where it was like a bunch of guys singing about how they're going to convert your children. I mean, whoa.
But listen, it's not the parents are fed up now because the bad guys, the groomers, call them what you will, are getting closer physically, closer in proximity to the kids. When I left law enforcement, going back to the early mid-2000s, I worked quite a bit right before I left and then after with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And I wish I could unsee some of the imagery and some of the case files I saw that I wouldn't get into here. It wouldn't be appropriate. But what I will tell you is this has been around for a long time. NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, they skirted laws for years because they're First Amendment protected, right? They say, well, we're simply disseminating information on nations that have lax laws for sex with kids, or if you want to protect kids, don't go to these nations that have child sex tourism. That's how they get around it. But if you really want to get into their psyche, there's a great book. It was written probably in the early to mid 90s by an FBI agent. The guy's name, this is when the Bureau actually did some good work and wasn't a political persecution squad. I believe the guy's name was Bob Hamer, and it's called The Last Undercover. And it's about he's pretty much spent, he was an anomaly. He pretty much spent his entire career undercover. He wasn't a guy that did field work for a while, then did it for a little bit and came back. He just had a knack for it. And this guy did everything from biker gangs to La Cosa Nostra. His last one was embedding with NAMBLA, and he embedded as a trust fund guy who was a pedophile. And the things they would do, like back when there was a mall at Herald Square in Manhattan, they would congregate, a group of these pedophiles, these men from like their mid-30s to their 70s, would go to the mall in Herald Square on the second floor and watch the kids come in after school and pick their targets. And this has been going on, but you couldn't, we tried, we went after NAMBLA, and Nick Mack went after NAMBLA and the Bureau, and Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, is very good at this, one of the best in the world. We joked about Canada, the RCMP has really talented child sex crimes investigators, but these guys are smart. And the scary thing is they're often well-funded and they don't fit a profile. Anybody in this room could fit the profile. Anybody in a restaurant can fit the profile. It's really difficult to tell who they are, but they are proactive, and they are some of the worst predators you'll ever see. Now what they're doing, they've been so emboldened for so long by knowing how to play the system and knowing how to frustrate law enforcement that they've gotten closer and closer, and now they're comfortable physically getting into the schools, becoming teachers, becoming administrators. Now, I'm not going to go off on conspiracy tangents about global pedophile networks and all. Yeah, there are definitely global child sex trafficking networks. This is a law enforcement established fact, right?
Isn't Maxwell in jail because of that?
She's 100% in jail because of it.
Confirms
No, I'm saying that. What I'm saying is I don't think, Hillary Clinton's personally abducting kids, and the Podesta brothers are helping her in vans, picking the kids up. And we've seen those things too. I'm not going to go down that road. But there are definitely child sex trafficking networks around the world. We know this, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, one of the groups that actually has helped are the Mexican cartels, because they know it's bad for business, right? If you talk to federal law enforcement or intelligence community, they'll tap the cartels for information on some of these sex traffickers, because the cartels know, look, they want to sell their drugs, right? And they'll traffic adult women in prostitution, but they know kids are really bad for business. That's when we send special operators down there to start killing people if they start abducting kids to solve the problem. But they've gotten very bold because they've gotten away with it for so long. They haven't been prosecuted. Now they are in the schools. That's not conspiratorial. They're being handcuffed and pulled out, and you're not seeing the stories because the left-wing media doesn't want to validate what the right's been saying.
But exactly. But I think you're talking about the superliminal, and the issue at play now is the subliminal.
Well, I think they go hand in hand.
There's both.
Well,
they go hand in hand.
But this story is, they pretend to be activists. They use cover of media. So I referred to one journalist as likely a pedophile because she was covering up overt pedophilic actions. You've got this one teacher now, I think what's her name? Sarah Bonner or something like that, in Illinois, instructing young children on how to use adult anonymous gay sex apps.
Right.
Why would a teacher go to children and say, read this? Mm-hmm. There's only one answer.
But I don't see that as subliminal. I see that as overt and overt act.
That's overt. What I'm saying is that when you get activists in the media defending it, saying it's you hate gay people, that is the subliminal. That is the manipulation,
right,
where they are taking control of the machine. I tell you, if there is no pushback, and I don't see this becoming a reality, but they will try to legalize this stuff.
Yeah, they will certainly.
Of course they will.
They will. But to your point, Tim, about these journalists and all, and you see them as pedophiles themselves, you're 100% right. Here's a case that isn't a pedophilia case, but I think it's a good parallel. I don't know if you guys remember a lawyer named Lynn Stewart. She was the lawyer for Abdul Rahman, the blind sheikh. He was the guy behind the first World Trade Center bombing in '93. One that wasn't too devastating. Yeah. And for years, federal law enforcement knew that he was her client, but they knew she was assisting, aiding, abetting, and she would always stand behind her law license and privilege. Well, finally, they had enough and they knew it was the crime fraud exemption, right? They knew what she was doing. They were able to get surveillance in the federal holding facility, saw that he was giving her kites, prison notes. She was passing information on to these terrorists, enabling his terror network, and she eventually was convicted, prosecuted, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same thing these journalists who are sympathetic to this are doing. They're enabling it, and they should be prosecuted as such.
I just looked up philia.
Well, that's a very, very difficult line. It's one thing if there's an active terrorist giving instruction to a terror network and you're acting as a courier for that illegal information.
If you're giving, but see, here's where I disagree with you. If you're giving them cover by using your law license to shield, how do we know these journalists aren't doing the same? How do we know
if the
they're
journalist
not
engages in
participating?
an illegal activity, by all means, prosecute them. If a journalist has a disgusting opinion, fire them and make what they do unthinkable.
But what I'm saying is most normal human beings would not be permissive of such heinous behavior unless they had a stake in it somehow.
Right. So I think there's probable cause there.
Yeah, or at least reasonable suspicion to start looking deeper to get to the PC to get the warrants. Yeah,
agreed. Yes.
Yeah, you made this point about people infiltrating the public school system, and I think that's very important because what the left and the dominant media culture has made very clear to the American people is that if you are someone who wants to abuse children, as long as you're using they/them pronouns or the pronouns of the opposite sex, they will treat anyone who regards you with suspicion as a bigoted person who shouldn't be listened to.
That's right. That's right.
I just looked up philia. This is a lot of like wordplay that people have been doing. Pedophilia. Philia is a type of love from Greece, ancient Greece, and it's the type of love that translates as friendship, the love of friendship. Philia, it's fine. But eros,
Hemophilia.
yeah, eros is love, sexual love. Now these people are pederotic. They're not pedophilic.
That's a great point.
They might be both, but you got to call them pederosts. At the very least, like it's about it's not about. I mean, it is weird for a grown adult to be friends with a 9-year-old kid that's not their son, but it's the erotic love that's the problem.
You know what? I had a former federal prosecutor, good guy, who did these trainings at NCMEC, who would drum that into everybody's head. They're not pedophiles, they're pederasts. He would say exactly what you just said because he wanted to draw that distinction. It goes back to a lot of what we say, right, in conservative or libertarian media, that language does matter. Don't let the left own the narrative. Don't let them create new terms. He was adamant about that, so you're spot on with that.
Oh, that's good. Who was that did that?
It was, I forget the guy's name. We had a bunch of trainers. I forget his name. He was an FBI agent back when the Bureau was good, and then he was a federal prosecutor. I got to dig it up for you.
Yeah, man, love is not love. There are many different types of love, and that is super important.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.